way, and we thought everything needed to be this way. And what we realized by having opposing ideas is that there was this side effect of this tiny little thing that actually benefits everybody. And so, like, there is that challenge of you need to have like disagreement and dissension. A friend of mine calls this healthy friction, right? The idea that like good things are pressed out of difficult circumstances, right? Like a coffee grinder. You can't just like throw hot water on beans and get a good cup of coffee. You actually have to, press and form these things to like make a brewable cup of coffee. And I think, I think where that leads me as someone who's like just kind of in this career and not pushing the platform forward through frameworks is that like if I'm not going to be part of that solution by pushing in the extremes, like it doesn't really benefit anyone if I just have strong opinions about the way that I write code. Yeah.
You know what I love about this is that this literally brings us full circle to the beginning. We're sitting there playing cool beans and you're telling us that you like Raphael and Leonardo and you like all of these things that are, the comedy and the horror all in one. And what you're telling me here, what you're telling our listeners is that there has to be this friction, right? And that when it all comes together, when Leonardo and Raphael come together and Donatello and Michelangelo, you get the Ninja Turtles. Yes. And I feel like that's exactly what we're saying here. When you have React, you have Angular, you have Vue, you have Svelte, you have Ember, all of these frameworks, all of these languages, and it comes together kind of, maybe we butt heads a little bit, but in the end, we make the Ninja Turtles. We make web development, right? Like, I just think that's so cool that that's kind of the parallel that we've seen here in this episode. I love your ideas. I love your thoughts. I think you've presented some really good truths though, right? And I very much appreciate that you are acknowledging that there does need to be some healthy contention, because that is what drives forward that growth and that progress and being able to see things in a different way. Erik, do you have any last questions before we have Michael share some final thoughts with us?
I do want to share an example real quick, just on that just sticks with me all the time, which is in the React community, we have, React Router, which is really kind of turned into Remix, a framework right now.
Right.
And that has such a long lineage in just shared front end knowledge, right? Because like AngularJS, I don't know. I feel like AngularJS was like kind of the first framework. And I remember it had a really opinionated kind of like router library that people would use with it. And so those ideas were expanded upon by Ember. They took that and they kind of really played around with like, okay, well, what does routing look like for an exclusively front-end client-based experience? And all of those were even informed before that with Rails. Like Rails, like the Rails router was kind of like this kind of, really important idea around like how we build routes around CRUD environments. So we have Rails and then Angular, and then Ember takes the ball and develops like a client side, router that's, really valuable. And then React grows in popularity, needs a router, steals all of the Ember router ideas for React, and then kind of takes it a little bit further into like making that dynamic. Like how do we make routes dynamic in a highly client-side application? And then that rolls further into kind of this return, this full circle return to like Remix, which is effectively like a client-side library back to kind of harkening back to Rails, but then with all the benefits of the whole front-end ecosystem collaborating on our routing primitives. And I think that right there is what we're doing, right? And it did take people breaking off and like branching off and saying like, oh, I don't agree with that. I want to see it this way, or I want to see it here, or I want to see it in this way. But it was kind of like, it was cross framework. It was ideas kind of developing in the broader sense, as opposed to just in a specific community. And so I think, to your point, Brooke, like just this idea of it is collaborative, and like sometimes day to day we don't feel it, but we have to recognize that the goal is collaboration. And even if we are kind of like putting up that friction, from time to time, and we will move forward together if we have the right mindset about it. In that, though, like the most important thing is like just not make enemies because of this stuff, right? Because these people may eventually see your point of view and like join you, like your way of thinking. And like I just think making enemies is like the worst thing that you could do, because like this whole world is a lot smaller than everybody thinks. And that's, yeah, it's just bad.
Well said. Thank you for saying that. I feel like we are focusing on the good aspects of the friction and how that builds stuff. But I'm really glad that you loop back to, humanity and caring about each other as professionals, colleagues. Even if we don't work with someone today, we might be working with them tomorrow, and we might love it. We might love it. So don't limit your possibilities. Really get into seeing what your group is contributing to the web, but also remember that everybody's contributing things as well. Sort of a peace, love, happiness ending to this.
But I mean, it's hard work, right? Like it's really hard, because you see, that stuff, and you want to like, you see a fire and you want to like just throw a log on.
Well, I can see that. Some people try to immediately douse it with buckets of water, and it's contentious, but it's good to know that some of that is beneficial. Mm-hmm. It's also good to remember that we should be polite and kind. But then another thing that I'm taking from this that you brought up, Michael, is let's remember to be critical in our thinking. Even though we've already done so much critical thinking to get to this point, we can't just stop, right? We need to be, go ahead.
Critical without hurtful, right? Like constructive criticism. I mean, this is something I feel like we learned back in high school, where probably the first time in your life you've had someone critically analyze a piece of your work. It's not done in hurt or anger or meanness. It's someone trying to help you. And I think if we can remember the humanity to all of this, and the human side, the people side, right? Like, yeah. I don't think people mean to be rude or hurtful. And I think just sometimes taking a step back and saying, did they really mean to say it the way that it came out of their mouth? Because if people are like me, they say things that just come out worded wrong, right? And I don't know. I think sometimes it is as simple as that. Like, I know that sounds like a Charlie Brown answer, where it's just sort of like simple and happy and go lucky, but I feel like sometimes that is the answer to things, is just remembering they're proud of what they're doing, and that's good that they have that. But I just think sometimes we get too defensive too quickly, and sometimes we just need to let it go and walk away and not not perpetuate the hate, right?
Yeah. I think that's critically important. And a way, I've been married for almost I guess a little over 15 years now, going on to 16. And one of the things that I've learned kind of making a life with somebody is really being honest about what you're looking for at any given moment, right? And saying, hey, I'm very excited about this thing that I'm about to show you. And I want to show you so I can share my excitement with somebody, right? Like setting that stage, or like, hey, I'm not totally sure why this thing that I just made isn't quite working. Like, could you help me like diagnose it, or like be critical about it? And I think that is part of the equation for having those more helpful relationships and it's hard. This is so hard, right? But like being honest with people up front about what you are hoping to discover through the conversation or experience together. And honestly, you demonstrated it so beautifully, like at the beginning of this conversation, which is like, what do you hope that people get by the end of this conversation? And I think sometimes starting with the end is how we kind of hold on to our humanity in relationship with each other. But it takes a lot to be that honest with other people. And, a lot of times we just kind of hope that other people see the world that we do, or will come to the same conclusions that we will. And we assign some kind of morality to those things, so that when they don't, we're not hurt by it. They're just immoral, or or they're like a pagan according to my worldview. And but it takes a huge amount of honesty and vulnerability and confidence to live in a world where you are open with people about what you expect from them in any given interaction.
That was so powerful. You know what? I think we're ready to end. That was great. That was a great thing to end on. Is there anything else that you wanted to share real quick, Michael, before we do go?
I'm so grateful that you invited me on today. This is such a fun thing to talk about. I appreciate your just insight in opening up this conversation. I appreciate all the space that you gave me to explore my thoughts on this in a more public forum than kind of just private conversations. But I just really hope over the next handful of years, I know that these last few years have just really broken a lot of us. And there's a lot of broken trust between people, and rightfully so, right? Like there's a lot of reasons not to trust people. But I really do hope that over the next few years, we can learn how to trust people in new ways, and, for their benefit, but also for our own, right? Because I think that we deserve to live lives where we trust people and are trusted, and gain the benefits of community and collaboration, and just interpersonal enjoyment. So I do hope for everyone that we can kind of get back to that place where we our natural position is trust.
Yeah, me too. I would love to be in that spot. Let's have the whole world get back in that spot. We'll make a lot more progress, I think. We'll have a lot more fun too, and that's what matters.
Yes.
Oh, for sure. Way more fun.
Exactly. Totally agreed. Listening to Posh Spice and Spice Girls and watching our Ninja Turtles. And we'll be happy go lucky. Okay, we're good.
Well, hey, everyone, please give Michael a follow and send him some great replies, and feel free to reply to our tweet about this episode. But you can follow Michael at Chantastic. That's CHANTASTIC on Twitter.
Yep, that's right.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode. And please share what you think. We don't just want to be the talking heads. We want y'all to tell us what you think, what you thought of the episode, what you agree with, what you disagree with, and any ideas you have for progressing towards a better future together. And thanks, Michael, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
This episode is sponsored by This.Labs, the JavaScript consulting firm offering staff augmentation, on-demand subject experts, training, and much more. Discover how we leverage cutting-edge tools to promote the scalability and longevity of mission-critical technologies for some of the world's leading enterprises by visiting us at this.co. That's THISDOT.co.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Dev.Life. Come join our community on Twitter and Facebook, currently at ngxp_show.